5 people waited. Jeez, Bear Nation. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for being here. You guys know me, or most of y'all do. Bear with BearIndependent.com. If the who with the who what? Yeah, Bear, B-E-A-R, like rawr, you know. Or like, oh, he's such a little teddy bear. With BearIndependent.com. How do you spell that? BearIndehpu, elemental P, star, asterisk, rainbow, unicorn, poop emoji, .cahn is BearIndependent.com. If you're new here and you like shenaniganry and global intel, you should probably subscribe. If you're old here and you've had enough, you should probably unsubscribe. Bear Independent, brief, 3JUN22. Global food supply is what we're talking about today. Upstate New York, he says. Finger Lakes region, up in the Catskill Mountains, the Adirondacks. Where you at? What are you doing, homie? Morning, Benjamin. In the U.S., drought and rising production costs will likely cause ranchers to continue to shrink the size of their herds. Praise the Father, we're growing ours, but we're not ranchers, we're homesteaders. Leading to further escalating beef prices. The effect won't be immediate. The impact will slowly unfurl to become more pronounced between the end of 2022, that's this year for those paying attention, going into 2023. Cattle prices are projected to be at record highs in 2023. Ground beef and chicken prices have already hit record highs for U.S. consumers. The issues facing American farmers are abundant. The drought took a toll, and now the heavy spring rains have prevented farmers from planting as much wheat as usual. Aside from pointing out that farmers operate on borrowed funds, yeah, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. Food production, in a very large part, is dependent upon loans from banks. Think about that. Good morning, Sam. Good morning. Coffee time. So, the velocity of money is directly tied to the production of food in the United States of America. And that's in large part because of the centralization of the production of food in the United States of America. Because most people want to, or need to, air quote, need to, live in the cities or the suburbs because of my job, or my dad, or my wife won't leave, or my whatever, or the kids are in school, or, you know, pick your excuse. So most people, roughly 80% of the population, lives in places where they can't produce resources. So that means that the 20% of the people that live in rural areas have to produce the resources that's consumed where the 80% of the people are. And you get into chemical fertilizers like what was developed during the World War II era, still being used today, and monoculture, monocropping, large-scale factory agriculture, whether that's acre upon acre of chemically fertilized corn, or CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, so forth and so on. All of that has been developed, justly or unjustly, to feed a growing population, the majority of which don't produce any resources. So, decentralization, if you can, and you can, if you will, you could come out to a place like where I am right here, even if it's just a handful of acres, and put in a garden, get some sheep, get some goats, get a milk cow, figure it out, get chickens. In the suburbs, in our North Texas, 1/3 of an acre suburban home, we had, in our backyard, we had 11 raised beds, meat rabbits, a chicken tractor with meat birds in it, a little chicken coop with laying hens in it. By the way, get rid of the roosters. The neighbors don't like the roosters, and you'll tip off the fuzz. No good. No good. We had ducks, meat ducks, Rowan meat ducks at one point. We had mature nut trees. We had berry bushes. We had row crops that we put in. I had 14-foot tall sunflowers in my backyard. I had 9-foot tall corn in my backyard. Yeah, fruit trees, rainwater catchment, 55-gallon drums full of water, all in my backyard in North Texas. 6-foot privacy fence, which doesn't do much to provide some operational security to your backyard agriculture when your sunflowers are 14 feet tall. Yeah, but my point is you can grow food, and we were growing 40% of our food in our backyard in North Texas. It can be done. And so what we need very much so as we continue to deal with a worsening global food supply is decentralization. Anybody that can produce food should produce food. Very much so, if you remember during World War II, if you were around during World War II, you'll remember, otherwise hopefully you've studied, the concept of victory gardens. Y'all need victory gardens. We are very likely in World War III right now. It's just beginning to go hot. Victory gardens are a thing. And so I would encourage you strongly, decentralize, take the power out of the hands of they, out of the bankers, out of the major conglomerates and corporations around the world that are producing your food, which, by the way, the more food they produce, the lower the quality that food is. Okay? Mass-produced anything, we all know this, mass-produced anything is not very high quality, right? There's a huge difference between the produce you produce in your backyard and the produce you get at the grocery store. There's a huge difference between your eggs that come out of your chickens and buying eggs at the grocery store. Huge difference in the quality of meat. We realized a couple of years ago that without trying, we are raising all the buzzwords. Free range, antibiotic free, cruelty free, cage free. Yeah, that's just, you mean letting animals be animals? Because, yeah, just let the animals be animals. And in exchange for letting them do what they do, they will give you meat and eggs and milk. It's pretty cool. So, decentralization. All right. So, aside from pointing out that farmers operate on borrowed funds, with today's higher interest rates devouring the bottom line, Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller stressed, quote, filling a tractor daily now costs farmers $1,000, twice what it was a year ago. It's through the roof, but it's not just diesel. It's fertilizer prices. It's parts. We can't get new tractors, new combines. We can't get new tillage equipment. So we have to keep running our older equipment, which we can't get parts for. And so it's just the whole comedy of errors, and it just multiplies on top of itself. Here in the South, we've had a drought. We've got record wheat prices. But if you don't have any wheat to sell, it doesn't really matter what the price is. End quote. I met Sid Miller a time or two, and seems like an okay human being. I don't know him terribly well, but I do agree with that statement, and I think it shows the kind of a snapshot of reality of what exactly is going on here. Now, I want to point out record wheat prices. Yes, wheat is up, and I would wheat, W-H-E-A-T, wheat, not weed. For those of y'all of the green persuasion, that's not what we're talking about today. I have no idea about the global weed supply. Not a metric I'm tracking. But wheat is up. Now, what does up mean? It's still available. And here in Oklahoma, it's gone from about $7.80 a bushel to about $14 a bushel. So almost a 200% increase. It's still only $14 a bushel though. Go get you some wheat, homie. And people say, well, I don't know where to get wheat. I didn't know where to get wheat either until I started doing some research, and I found grain mills and grain bins in my area, and then I called them up and I said, hey, do you have wheat? And they're like, no, no, no. Yeah, we got wheat. Cool. Is it inoculated wheat for planting, or is it wheat berries? No, it's wheat berries. Cool. Can I get some? How much you want? Do you want it in bags? A lot, and yes, in bags. All right, well, it costs $1 more per 50 pounds to have it bagged up. Okay, sounds good. How much you want? How much is a pallet? Oh, that's 2,500 pounds. Let's do the math. Yeah, a few $100. A few $100 for 2,500 pounds of wheat? Sign me up. I'm coming. And you get there, and they pick the pallet up with the forklift, and they put it on your trailer or in the back of your truck, and you drive away with a grin on your face, and you and your friends have a wheat bucketing party. It's literally that simple, but you got to do the homework. And so y'all ask me all the time, well, Bear, where can I find wheat? Make phone calls. I don't live where you live. I don't know the people that you should know in your community, but you can make contact with other people, and you should. That's how we found wheat. That's how we continue to get wheat. And yes, it's up. It's twice what it was, but it wasn't terribly expensive before it doubled in price. And it's still available. And so don't let that window of opportunity close on you because you're like, oh my gosh, wheat is up. It's still affordable. Get it. Because at some point, it's going to be much like Charmin was 2 years ago, where it didn't matter how much money you had. You couldn't buy toilet paper. $1 million for a roll of Charmin. Can't do it. Well, I could have. I'd be a billionaire at this point because we stack stuff deep. You know, I should have been putting rolls of Charmin on eBay for $1 million. All I need to do is sell one, right? Anywho, I digress. But my point is, you know, 3 years ago, when the ammo crisis started, had you known, yeah, 5.56 is going to go from $199 for 1,000 rounds to $600 for 1,000 rounds, you probably would have bought a bunch of 5.56, right? You should have. 2 years ago, when you couldn't get toilet paper, right? Or you could read the writing on the wall and you bought a bunch of toilet paper, right? You did what you're supposed to do. Well, I'm telling you now, wheat is still available. But if it follows the same pattern that these other commodities have, which, by the way, you need wheat to live. Most people do. Some of y'all, your gluten allergies, it'll kill you, but that's a different conversation. My point is, bread. Give us this day our daily bread. You need your daily bread to live. Right? So it's much more of an important commodity than asswipe or even 5.56. If it follows the same pattern, in a year or two, it's going to be so exorbitantly priced that you can't get it. Maybe sooner. And so I'm telling you, get wheat. And if you can't take the initiative to source wheat in your area and to figure it out, well, you reap what you sow. So put the effort in. The U.S. is the 4th largest exporter of wheat, W-H-E-A-T, globally, and has reported previously there is a looming global food crisis because of the current lack of exports from Ukraine and Russia. But it's not just those countries. The International Food Policy Research Institute wrote, quote, as the war continues, there is a growing likelihood that food shortages, particularly of grains and vegetable oils, will become acute, leading more countries to restrictions on trade. So far, at least 14 countries have banned food exports, which include grains, fertilizers, plant oils, meat, produce, and many of those bans are in place until at least the end of 2022, according to a chart produced by the International Food Policy Research Institute. Due to the export restrictions further squeezing the worldwide supply, prices have risen even higher. So we have a supply issue and a demand issue, which means we're going to see exponential increases in prices here. The supply is dwindling. and the demand is going up, especially as we head into what will likely become a hot war. Been talking lately about resilience and resistance. You can't have a resistance without resilience. And whether this is on a international geopolitical stage or this is your community, resistance doesn't happen without resilience. And so countries, nation states are stockpiling grains and fuels and weapons because they're gonna need it. They wouldn't be, believe me, the bureaucratic machine would not be spinning into action to make that stuff happen. And it 100% is. We meaning us at Refuge Medical, we're intimately aware of the efforts that are being made by the Defense Logistics Agency right now, which is a sub-agency of the Department of Defense. The DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, is buying up everything they can right now, which means they expect a hot war, which means what I've been telling you for the last 2 years, unfortunately, could come true. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't expect it. And so they're buying up that stuff, they're stockpiling that stuff, because stockpiling that stuff, food, water, medical, commo, etc., sanitation, stockpiling that stuff creates resiliency. It gives you depth, it gives you room to maneuver. It insulates you to some degree from production issues, supply chain issues, embargoes, trade restrictions, etc. That's resilience. You can continue to operate with less and less outside input. That's resilience. So nation states are doing that right now. My question is, how much do you trust your nation state? I've seen continuity of government plans, COG. Homie, they're not interested in continuity of you. They're interested in continuity of them. And if you read between the lines what's been going on politically here domestically, I think that we have an issue. We have a lot of issues, but I think we have an issue where there is an illegitimate, and I'm saying this using technical terms, okay? Technical terms that come from all of our modern military doctrine on guerrilla tactics and, guerrillas, auxiliary, underground, political wings, etc. These are technical terms. I believe that there's a shadow government in place operating behind the scenes that is developing its resiliency because it believes that it will be dealing with an occupying force on its territory. And I believe that element, the occupying force, that element, the shadow government, believes that good God-fearing, gun-toting Americans are the enemy. Resistance operating concept. Buy it, read it, underline stuff, take notes. There's a lot in there. There's a huge portion on shadow government, and it's a real thing. I'm not talking about all the boogeyman conspiracy theories here. I'm talking about actual U.S. military doctrine. We know what shadow governments are, and we know what they're supposed to accomplish, and the control of the narrative and the orchestration of the guerrilla forces and the auxiliary and the underground and the messaging, and if you start plugging in all the pieces there, taking notes, if you write George Soros in this place and Klaus Schwab in this place and the Clintons here and BLM and Antifa here, and you start putting all that together, and you also understand that terrorism, as defined, is the use of violence for political gain, and you look at what's happening in our country today, all of a sudden it all starts clicking into place that there are very bad actors that consider normal everyday Americans to be the enemy. That's a huge problem. It explains why we have a rogue FBI. It explains why we have elements within DHS that are not playing by the rules. It explains why Custom and Border Patrol isn't being allowed to do their job. It explains why there's been so many issues with Secret Service details. It explains the incredible incumbency rate of politicians at the federal level. It explains our actions in Ukraine currently and a rogue State Department. It explains a whole bunch of stuff. And this is a much bigger concept. And maybe I'll map it out for y'all at some point. Probably, it will definitely require a whiteboard. So that could be an interesting piece of content to produce that will instantly get banned from YouTube, generate multiple community strikes, and force all of y'all to come over to Patreon. But I digress. The point here is that nation states are actively building resiliency currently, and if the nation states are doing that, that should be an indicator for us to be doing the same thing. And you need to ask yourself, is the nation state going to take care of me? Well, as somebody who's done a lot of disaster relief and done a lot of work with the federal government, the answer to that's no, they're not going to. And even if they attempt to, they're going to be far less effective at taking care of you than you are going to be at taking care of you. And so I encourage you strongly to make the moves that you can make right now while the opportunities exist for you to make them right now. The global food supply is already stressed, and as it stands currently, indicators only point to the situation worsening. This is coming right on the heels of a situation in which inflation has hit record highs in Europe, and government officials and economists in the United States are warning of a major global recession. Let's touch on that for a moment. I believe it was Estonia and Lithuania. Their most recent polling, or most recent data rather, had them at an actualized inflation rate of between 18 and 20%. And the Europoll, there was good reporting on this yesterday with Dustin and Max over at Forward Observer. We're talking about this yesterday. So shout out to them. If you're not watching Forward Observer, you should be. The Situational Awareness Show, I watch it every day. And I try and catch Out Front with Mike Shelby every afternoon when I can. You know, kind of a busy guy. But they do really good work over there. So go check those guys out as well. But they were talking about Europol yesterday. They had concerns that all these weapons that are being funneled into Ukraine, after the conflict in Ukraine is over, that those weapons will find their way into the hands of criminals, which then, amid this worsening geopolitical climate and scarcity of resources and gross inflation, will allow criminal elements to operate with American-produced weapons given as war aid to exert authority and control in areas to collect all these resources. And that this gross inflation in Eastern Europe, these two countries, 18 to 20% inflation in Estonia and Lithuania, could cause civil unrest there. Okay, yeah, I agree completely. The actualized inflation rate in the United States is 17.1% currently. So what does that say about us? Read the writing on the wall, okay? 17.1% actual inflation rate currently in the United States of America. So if we're worried about civil unrest and riots in the street and having to enforce martial law in Eastern Europe because of 18 to 20% inflation, we're sitting at 17.1 in the United States. The system is fragile, it's broken, it's breaking. And you need to, in my humble opinion, be as independent of that broken, fragile system as possible. You need to not participate. You need to starve the beast. You need to take personal responsibility for the well-being of you and your loved ones and your community to operate from a position of strength. Because their continuity of government plans don't include you. And based upon a lot of the reading between the lines that I've done, they might think you're the enemy. And based upon a lot of the legislation that's being rubber stamped through the Senate right now, they do think you're the enemy. And then what? huge problem. Huge problem. So inflation as well. The Fed is talking about raising interest rates to slow the demand on the money markets. Their concern is they're going to collapse the stock market if they do it too quickly. So that's interesting. But the Fed is basically admitting, hey, we're out of moves. We got to do something. So and their target percentage rate for inflation is 2%. It's going to take some drastic moves on behalf of the Fed in order to take actual inflation from 17.1% to 2%. Hardship, economic hardship. The velocity of money is going to be incredibly low. What does that mean domestically? There's a lot of businesses that have been started in the last decade or so, especially since the 2008 financial crisis, that have known nothing other than a good economy and free-flowing money. That's going away. That means there's the high potentiality for a lot of businesses that are operating off of a debt load or a revolving line of credit to go out of business. That's going to further exacerbate not only supply chain, but civil unrest and economic crisis, because now we have even more people out of work. It's not a stretch to say, hey, there could be breadlines. Look at the Great Depression. There were absolutely breadlines. There were soup kitchens. People had to have them. The work parties and work camps that were put together to keep people busy. I think debtors' prisons will come back again. I think because you owe the bank. Well, you can't get blood from a stone, Bear. I don't have any money. Yep, but you do have breath in your lungs. You pick work camp or prison, where you want to go. So all of these indicators, and this is not the zombies are going to rape your dog and eat your kids channel, but these indicators are here and they're real, and I think we do a disservice if we ignore them. Around the world, food products and the supplies to grow food continue to become scarcer as the value of currencies continue to shrink, and so far, weather events and inflation have done absolutely nothing to help. And there's one article, if you're on Patreon, you've got the full brief and the links. But there's one article that the Dance Monkeys included, and the Dance Monkeys being our research team. So intel@bearindependent.com if you've got something you'd like to share. But this article is it's interesting. From lovebylife.com. U.S. agriculture poses security threat in China's interest, federal report warns. It's written in Chinese, then translated to English, and so it's very much so. Pleased to you for make to have nice article for news, for info about food for China, make U.S. go bad boom. Like, it's kind of written like that, which is, you know, you got all the giggles when you're talking about stuff like that. But the subject matter isn't exactly funny. Beijing's crosshairs. A federal report warned this week that China's determination to become self-sufficient and resolve its food security challenges could put the U.S. on the brink. The report was released by the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission. China's efforts to bolster its agriculture sector, U.S. security, is not the only threat. Again, the syntax is terrible, but listen to the point of the article. China's failure to secure enough domestic production to feed its mammoth population means that the U.S. will acquire farmland, livestock, equipment, and intellectual property in some cases. China's President Xi Jinping speaks at the 8th round of U.S.-China strategic and economic dialogues and the 7th round of U.S.-China high-level consultation on people-to-people exchange, Beijing. Quote, the United States is a global leader in all these fields, making it a prime trading partner and often a target of China's efforts to strengthen its agriculture sector and food security, sometimes through illicit means, the report stated. China is looking to dominate the genetically modified seed industry, which has the potential for massive economic windfalls. Advancing Beijing's seed stockpiles would not only reduce its dependence on the U.S., it could also make a major competitor in the global market. The USCC report found that the U.S. exported $1.62 billion worth of seeds, mostly vegetables, corn, soybeans, and grasses in 2020. Chinese President Xi Jinping commemorates the 111th blah, blah, blah. In 2021, 173.9 million of exported seeds were sold to China alone, which accounted for roughly 15% of total exports. Chinese President Xi Jinping directed the agricultural industry China's reliance on foreign resources rather than directing its resources for development and research. Domestic seed innovations have become a major tool in its agriculture industry. Acquiring U.S. trade secrets through agricultural espionage to become an easy way to China. Yes, I know, terrible Chinese syntax, but let's do that again. Acquiring U.S. trade secrets through agricultural espionage to become an easy way to China. Quote, agricultural IP theft could enable Chinese agribusinesses to undercut U.S. competitors on the international seed market. Beyond the economic woes of U.S. food production, on an even more ominous threat, the unpredictable reality of genetically engineered seeds can help mitigate the risks of agriculture industry every season by drought, pest, and disease. Behind the technology is a genetically modifying crop that can save a farming season, which can also be used to target engineered crops. One vulnerability to genetically modified seeds is their limited genetic variation. Consequently, a virus or fungus engineered to kill a genetically modified plant could wipe out an entire crop to mitigate the losses. And it goes on and on and on from here, but the point here is China is trying to become agriculturally independent of the United States while engaging in agricultural espionage in the United States to become agriculturally independent of the United States and form the world's largest conglomerate of genetically modified seeds. China's making moves. And it's interesting because they're trying to separate themselves from the United States while also acknowledging that they are prime trade partners with one another, China and the United States, and they get a whole bunch of food from the United States. And so before they can strategically separate from one another, they have to be able to take care of their own food supply. How do you boil that down for you? Before you can separate yourself from this beast system, you have to be able to take care of your own food supply. Let's look at that as a war indicator between China and the United States. If China is dependent upon U.S. agriculture to feed its people, going to war with the United States is a bad idea. Something that's been brought up over and over again as we talk about China, Taiwan, U.S. What about India? India is saying, hey, they're not going to export any of their grain. I think they're saying that publicly, but very privately they're going to, because India talked about increasing their grain exports by up to 30 times just a month ago. So we'll see what happens with that. Point here being, China is going to try and corner the market on the world seed market and produce their own food, enough of their own food that they can separate themselves from the United States. That's a threat indicator. Hey, because we know that Chinese made, camp chairs and microwaves and spatulas are all gonna break. Yeah, now they're gonna produce all of our seeds? Bad idea. So, that's the brief for today. Hey, stack it to the rafters, do the things. I appreciate you all very much. If you're one of those people that jumps off when it's time to talk about how to support the show, this is your cue. Beat feet, goodbye, skedaddle, get out of here, have a blessed day. Now, very briefly, refugemedical.com. Handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever, refugemedical.com. The best first aid kits on planet Earth. This is made in the United States of America. 42 lives saved to date. The most recent life was a gentleman who had a smash kit, which is an automotive vehicle kit that we put together. And there was a lady riding a motorcycle who wrecked and was laying in a bush with multiple lacerations and a broken spine. And this gentleman was able to provide medical intervention using the kit that he had, stabilize her C-spine region, cervical collar, get that on, roll the lady over, look for puncture wounds, address her wounds, start an ambulance, get a bus coming, get her onto the bus, saved her life. Absolutely awesome. So we're up to 42 lives saved at refugemedical.com. And we do have, this is the SOB, small of the back kit. These are in stock in woodland and woodland camo, and I think there's a couple other colors that may be available. Coyote tan SOB kits, or Bearfax, are in stock. We'll have more Bearfax of different colors in stock next week. And by the way, when we say in stock, I mean it's under our roof. I can put my hand on it and ship it to you immediately. Wound care buckets are in stock. Birthing buckets are in stock. The big kits, the crash, the smash, the stomp bags, the adventure kits, the mass casualty kits, combat lifesaver kits are all in stock. The canine kits are all in stock. Canine handler kits. Bleeding control kits are in stock. Most of our components are in stock. So tourniquets, pressure bandages, wound packing, combat gauze, hemostatics, all that stuff is in stock. Chest seals. So we are doing our absolute best to make sure we stay in stock for y'all so you guys can get your stuff. Please use the promo code BEARNATION. Please use the promo code BEARNATION. Not only does that get you free shipping, it helps us understand the metrics on our end of how effective my voice is for helping y'all get this stuff. So please use the promo code BEARNATION. These things are awesome, okay? They're absolutely awesome. This is the SOB. It weighs as much as one loaded AR magazine. It's about this big, about the size of my hand. Great on a war belt, great on a headrest. Oh, the ARC, the Advanced Ripaway Kit, brand new kit. It's like been out for 10 days. I believe there are more red ARCs in stock as well. And so if you've been waiting for an ARC, an Advanced Ripaway Kit to mount to your headrest, that's in stock as well. Promo code is BEARNATION. And then refugetraining.com. If you have blood inside of your body and breath in your lungs, you need to know trauma medicine. It doesn't matter if you're a cool guy that wears a plate carrier. It doesn't matter if you're law enforcement, military, EMS, fire. Doesn't matter. If you have blood in your body and breath in your lungs, you need to know trauma medicine. So, refugetraining.com. Come to class. Come see us. You can use promo code BEARNATION for 5% off any of those classes all across the country. There's some Responder 1 classes left in Philly. There's some Responder 1 classes left in Dallas. There might be some Essential Responder classes left in Dallas. We've got nationwide tour dates up at refugetraining.com, so please go check that out. And then lastly, hey, please remember us at Caleb House, Grindstone Ministries, grindstoneministries.com. We have 6 children in our care right now who were sexually assaulted, and we are providing care to them and working as an advocate with them and the courts, both the county court and Department of Homeland Security, DHS, which gets involved in cases like this when we're dealing with juveniles. The oldest of these 6 children is 12 years old. The oldest of these 6 children is 12 years old. And we are doing everything that we can to assist them in their recovery efforts. And we could not do that without you. So thank you for supporting Grindstone Ministries and Caleb House. You can check us out at grindstoneministries.com. And I will be at Caleb House this coming week with heavy equipment beginning site prep for the recovery building that we will be building so that we actually have a roof to put over the heads of the children and the house parents so that we can do what we said we were going to do, both to the creator of the universe and to y'all, that we can forsake not the widow and the orphan, that we can break generational curses, and that we can help fix these kids that have been damaged by the world. So, appreciate y'all. Do the things, Bear Nation, do the things. And have a happy day of rest. Bless y'all. Shalom.